Good afternoon, everybody. This is Tom. I have some information that I wanted to pass along to you, and maybe, I hope, a little treat. I just sent back the page proofs of Pity, Power, and Tolkien's Ring to Rule the Fate of Many to Cade State University Press this week so they can finish up the formatting and we can, get this book out the door. Still on schedule for December. And also, I wanted to say thank you to all of you who have pre-ordered the book, told me you were ordering the book, promised me you would order the book, checked like next to a post I made about the book, whether here or somewhere else. I do appreciate that. It's, every single one of those things is meaningful to me. The other thing I'd like to throw in here today is I thought maybe I'd do a little series of videos where I give you a little bit of an idea of what the book's about, a piece at a time. So today I'm going to start out by reading you the first page or so of the introduction, and then at some point later I'll be back with the first chapter, the second chapter, and on after that. And I'm hoping you won't consider it to be on and on after that. Anyway, here's the beginning of the introduction. The first section of the introduction is called The Burden on Frodo and the Story. Quote, Tolkien was his own best critic, unquote, writes Anna Vonenskaya. Not only did revising his works release a torrent of new ideas, as C.S. Lewis pointed out, but reading and thinking about them revealed depths he had not fathomed before. We can see this in his letters, as well as in every phase of the creation of his legendarium, so masterfully laid out by his son and editor, Christopher, in the History of Middle-earth. An essential part of being his own best critic was being his own best reader. We can see Tolkien the reader, the critic, and the writer coming together in his response to the request of his publisher, Allen and Unwin, for a sequel to The Hobbit. In a 1964 letter to Christopher Brotherton, Tolkien recalled, quote, They wanted a sequel, but I wanted heroic legends and high romance. The result was The Lord of the Rings. The magic ring was the one obvious thing in The Hobbit that could be connected with my mythology. To be the burden of a large story, it had to be of supreme importance, unquote. To call the ring the burden of a large story is to perceive that it is as much the burden the story has to bear as it is the burden that Frodo has to bear. It is at once supremely important in and to the story. Similarly, in The Lord of the Rings, Tolkien saw the blending of the Elvish perspective found in the, quote, high legends of the beginning, with the human point of view, which first arose in The Hobbit. At the same time, he knew, more abstractly, that the tales of his mythology, quote, must, as all art, reflect and contain in solution elements of moral and religious truth or error, unquote. What is reflected is seen indirectly, if not darkly. What is in solution is seen barely, if at all. The Lord of the Rings embodies the synthesis of each of these three theses: the burden of the story and the burden of Frodo, the perspectives of elves and men, and the reflection and solution in a secondary world of truths fundamental to the primary world, not just individually, but into a greater whole, which, presented mythically and realized artistically, creates and shares the significance of these truths, perspectives, and burdens metaphorically. Quote, Tolkien is thinking in story, unquote, Simon Cook tells us in The Apprenticeship of J.R.R. Tolkien, in which he argues forcefully that the allegory of the tower, which Tolkien told as a means to understand Beowulf, is also of vital importance for understanding Tolkien's own writing. In employing this allegory, Tolkien is, quote, exploring a metaphor and making meaning. Yet we remain on the surface, and have not the key to his intentions, unquote. And that's where I'm going to stop for now. I did want to mention that since I mentioned Simon Cook, a friend of mine, excellent Tolkien scholar. You should check out his work, both his book, The Apprenticeship of J.R.R. Tolkien. He's got another one before that, too, which, sorry, Simon, I don't remember the name of it at the moment, but he's also got some articles in Tolkien studies. That's The Apprenticeship of J.R.R. Tolkien. Another thing I mentioned was the scholar Anna Valenskaya, who wrote an absolutely marvelous chapter on death in Tolkien in her book Fantasies of Time and Death, which talks about this time and death in Tolkien, Edison, and Dunsany. Marvelous book, and her chapter on death is one of the best things I've read in Tolkien studies in quite a while. So you should check those out too. They've been very, very handy and important to me, very well thought out and very scholarly. See you next time.